Hi, this is Seven Star from the Center for Self-Compassion, and this video is part 3 of the online course, The Path of No Problem. Part 3 is called Nothing is Personal. So when I say nothing is personal, it goes a little step further than just saying don't take things personally. So people often say don't take things personally, or you may have heard that before, or maybe you say it to yourself sometimes. But what I'm saying is that nothing is personal. Since there is no personal self, there is no personal you, nothing can be personal. So not only do you not need to take things personally, but they aren't personal. What happens is you make them personal in your mind. So why do we end up making things personal or taking things personally? What happens is we have this idea in our mind of who we think we are. So we have this image of this person that we put our name onto. We say, that's me. And that person has a very long list of qualities, and some are good in our mind and some are bad in our mind. And we're constantly managing that image to try to make it look good to ourselves and to other people. But really the core is that we're trying to make it look good to ourselves so that we feel like we're okay, so that we feel like we're good people, a good person. So when you encounter another person or a group of people or some situation that you think means something about you, that in some way you think relates to that image that you have of yourself in your mind, then you check to see if what you think the other people are thinking about you matches up with what you think about you. And if it doesn't match up, then you get upset. Because again, you're busy trying to manage this image that you have of yourself and make sure that it looks good to you. So someone says something that implies that you are, that who you are is something that you don't want to be associated with. And so then you have to fight it. You have to defend your image of yourself. So if someone implies that you are not intelligent and your image of yourself is someone who is intelligent, and that intelligence is very important to you because that makes you a good person. It's one of those qualities that you rely on to feel good about yourself. Then it will be very upsetting to you for someone to suggest that you're not intelligent. And then you'll have to push back against that. So taking something personally means that you make a situation about yourself, so you make it mean something about you, and it can be positive or negative. Right now I'm speaking about negative. So if someone says something and you think that they are thinking something negative about you, or that the situation would lead people to think something negative about you. But you could take positive things personally as well, which we'll discuss a little bit later on. So that's what it means to take something personally. So you perceive that other people or another person has an idea about you that's not correct. So that's insulting to you because you think it's wrong. It chafes up against your imaginary person that you call yourself. So then you have to stand up for yourself or defend yourself or fight. And when I say yourself, I mean you're standing up for your image you have of yourself. You're standing up for your the false self, which actually doesn't exist. It's only in your mind. So the reason why people do this, the reason why people have this image of themselves and try to manipulate it and make it look good all the time, is because at the core, most people think that something is wrong with them, that who they really are deep down is not acceptable or not lovable, that it's not worthy, that it's not likable. So then they create this false person, and they cling on to that false person and the good things about that false person in order to keep down the voice that's telling them maybe they're really not okay, or there's something wrong with them, or if people really knew them, they wouldn't like them. So because you have this core belief that maybe something is wrong with you, or if people really knew you, they wouldn't like you, that there's something ugly inside that you don't want to see. And of course you don't want other people to see it, but mainly you don't want to see it. That's the reason why we create this false self, and we're doing all this manipulation. And then we get so offended when someone comes along and says, oh, well, I think maybe you're this other thing. It's really terrifying to us when that image that we have of ourselves that's keeping that bad, nasty person that we think we are at bay, when that protection from seeing that is threatened. So what I would like you to do is to think of a situation where you felt very personally insulted, personally offended, where you took something personally. And I just want you to write down what happened. Okay, so now I would like you to write down, what is it in that situation where you were offended that you perceive that other people or another person was thinking about you or would think about you? Maybe a situation occurred and you were upset because you thought, well, now people will think such and such about me. So what did that situation say about you or mean about you in your mind? What did you think other people were thinking about you? Okay, so now I'd like you to think about what you did when that happened. Did you try to fight against what you perceived other people were thinking about you, or what the other person was thinking about you? So you can fight back directly to the person who you feel offended you, or the people who you feel offended you, by arguing or getting really angry, or just by pointing out or trying in some way to demonstrate that they're wrong and that you're right, or trying to show them who you really are, meaning you're trying to show them your version of your false self. You can also react in a way that doesn't directly involve the other person. So you could talk to a friend or talk to a family member and complain about that situation and then seek support from another person who knows your false self and would support you in the version of the false self that you prefer. So you could tell your friend what happened, and then your friend might say, oh, that's totally wrong. No, no, you're really smart. Look at, you've done this, you've done this, you've done this, you've done this. And just affirming that your idea of your false self is correct. So you could do pushback by talking to someone else. You could also talk to yourself. Maybe you do some self-talk or some affirmations like, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know you. Remember all the things that you've done and look how smart you are. Or maybe you even have some actual physical things that you look at, like your diploma from college, or I don't know, something that proves to you that you are smart and that they're wrong. Or you might just tell yourself, oh, it doesn't matter. It's nothing. I'm love, something, something. All of that is an attempt to try to reject their version of your false self and to affirm the version that you prefer, the version that you have in your mind that you want other people to also have in their minds. So how did you respond? What did you do? Did you push back against their version of you, what they thought about you? Did you try to correct it? Okay, so now I would like you to consider what would happen if you just let go of this whole game of trying to be a certain way and have other people think you're a certain way, trying to control this idea of the false self. What if you just let them think whatever they think about you? And I really want you to consider this. I don't mean just like, well, why don't you just let them think whatever? Who cares? This is not, I don't mean that. We're not trying to get away from it. We are trying to go further in and inquire actually more. So I really want you to consider to yourself why you're doing this. What is it that you think would be so bad that would happen if other people thought this negative thing about you? What if you didn't try to defend yourself and you didn't say anything and you just let them think that? What would be so terrible about that? Or what might you lose by just letting it be? Okay, so one thing that I want to mention is this idea that if you feel offended by someone else's suggestion of what you might be, there has to be already that suggestion somewhere in you, in your own mind. So you hear the expression, someone is pushing my buttons, or they know how to push my buttons. Now, you can't control other people's behavior, but you are the owner of the buttons. You are the one who has the buttons in the first place, and everyone has different buttons. And if you didn't have that certain button, the other person wouldn't be able to press it. So what I mean is, there must be something in you who at least thinks there's a small possibility that the other person might be correct in what they're saying about you, or what they're thinking about you, or what this situation means about you. So if, in my example where someone is suggesting that I'm not intelligent, I'm really not going to be upset unless I have a little button already in my own mind that doubts my intelligence. I have to be wavering on it a little bit. There has to be already a small part of me that believes that, no, maybe I'm not really intelligent. So then there's that vulnerable spot and that button, and then when someone suggests maybe you're not intelligent, it's all ready to go to fire off. And I get very, very upset. If I really had no doubt about my intelligence whatsoever, I'm not going to get upset, because I just know that they're wrong. Now, of course, I'm not intelligent, because no one can be intelligent and no one can be dumb. Intelligence and stupidity are not real things. They're just ideas in the mind. But I'm just saying that when you get upset, when someone suggests something about you, there has to be already this small idea already in yourself that thinks that that thing might actually be true about you. And that's why we get so terrified, and then our shame is triggered, and then we get angry. Right? Because if that were true, then people would all be insulted by the same thing. Or I'm saying, if that weren't true, so if we didn't have this button idea, we didn't have these ideas already in our mind, then someone says something, and everyone who is present when that person is saying that thing would all be equally insulted. But that's not the way it works. Some people are more offended than others, because some people already have in them a sensitivity to that, where they think, oh, that might be true about me. So I just wanted to put that out there, because again, you can't control other people's behavior. But if you get really upset and you get really offended about something, you can take a look and see what your buttons are. So you can see, oh, I'm really clinging on to this idea that I'm very, very intelligent, and I need that in order to feel good about myself. That's really important information for you to have, because intelligence is just a made up thing. It's just an idea you have in your mind, and it doesn't make you a good person, because you're not a good person, because you're not a good person or a bad person, because there is no personal self anyway. So now you can see how taking things personal in a positive way is just the other side of the same coin. So I will have a situation happen, or someone says something about me that I take personally in a positive way. I think this means something about me. This means that I'm intelligent, and that's a good thing. And I need that. I like that. That makes me feel like I'm a good person. So then I put that in my image that I have in my mind of who I am. And then later, when someone says something that goes against that, then I'm going to take that personally, and I'm going to get upset. I'm going to get offended. So taking something personally in a positive way is just the other side of taking something personally in a negative way. So what I would like you to do is to write down 3 positive things about yourself, about your personality or your accomplishments. 3 things that you, if you were to describe yourself to someone, the 3 best things about you. Okay, and now I'd like you to write down 3 negative things about yourself. So just 3 things that you don't like about yourself, about your personality or your habits, your behavior. 3 things that you don't like. So previously, I've talked about how in any situation that happens in your life or any circumstance that arises in your life, you can use to either choose to identify with the false self or the authentic self and go down a path of suffering, cause yourself suffering, or you can use that situation to wake up, to disidentify from the self, the false self or the authentic self. So if you have a situation that you take personally, you can recognize that you're taking it personally and you can choose to wake up, to notice that there actually is no personal self. You are the one who's creating it. And so then therefore the whole conflict over another person or people's image of you and your image of yourself is all something that you've created. It's like a war that you've started. You created the 2 sides and now you're warring, having the 2 sides war against each other. But really it's something that the whole thing you've made up in your mind. I just want to also say that yes, you can suffer if you identify with the false self and also if you identify with the authentic self. Because remember, the authentic self is the self that is arising here and now in this moment. You may call it yourself, but it isn't you. Right? So if I have a feeling arising right now in this moment, like anger, I am the open and loving presence that acknowledges the anger, that recognizes the anger, that's here with the anger, that's here with that authentic self, that takes care of the authentic self. So I am not the authentic self. The authentic self is just phenomena that are arising right now, like a wave coming and going. It still comes and goes, comes and goes. The open, loving presence that you are doesn't come and go. It isn't good or bad. It has no definition, no beginning, and no end. So if you identify with the false self or you identify with the authentic self of the moment, both of those are what I call suffering. So you can use any situation to see how you are identifying with the false self, creating the false self, identifying with the false self, or identifying with the authentic self, and causing your suffering. So what I want to do is look at the things that you wrote down about yourself and see then how you go to war. So I would like you to pick one of the positive things that you wrote down, and I want you to think about how you try to recreate that positive trait about yourself. How do you try to continually show yourself, prove to yourself that that's still true? How do you try to prove it to other people? So now you're trying to control that image, because positive things about you are not real and negative things are not real either. Since they're not actual real things, like an object that I can point to and say, this is, look, here's my intelligence. Since it's not a real thing, I have to come up with some ways to try to show, prove to myself and others that I'm still intelligent. So pick one of the positive traits, and I want you to write down the things that you do to try to prove to yourself that that's true. Prove to others that that's true. To prove to others that that's true. Recreate that in yourself. So maybe you look for situations where you can appear smart, or cling on. So how do you try to maintain that? So maybe you do a lot of crossword puzzles to make sure that your intellect doesn't decline. Okay, so go ahead and write down some of the strategies that you're using. Okay, so now I'd like you to pick one of the negative things that you wrote down. And I want you to think about how you try to hide or suppress or deny that thing that you think is negative about you. So there's a kind of an infinite list of things that people do to try to hide or get rid of things that they think are negative about themselves. So you can write down specific behaviors if you want to. There's all kinds of addictive and compulsive behaviors that people do in order to suppress, hide, deny, or try to fix or change something that they think is negative about themselves or wrong with them. So go ahead and write down some of your strategies. How do you try to get away or hide or deny that negative trait about yourself? Oh, I forgot to say blame, which is a huge one. Blaming is another big one. There's the hide, deny, suppress, trying to fix or change, and then there's blaming. So blaming, or which is also known as excuse making. So it would be like there's some external circumstance that's causing you to have that negative trait. For example, If I'm not in very good shape, I could say, well, I can't exercise, see, because of this, and this reason. That way it's not something about me. So I'm denying my own, what I perceive to be something negative about myself, which is that I really don't exercise enough or as much as I should, or I'm not taking care of myself. And so instead of just being with, oh, I'm not taking care of myself the way that my body needs me to, then I'm going to shift the blame for that, the responsibility for that, onto someone or something else. So, well, I can't get outside. It's been raining for 2 weeks. When it's sunny again, of course I will. That way it's not about me. So I'm denying that, something that I think is negative about me. I just want to throw that out there because blame is another big one. So you've written down something positive about yourself and how you try to cling on to that or continually prove that that's true about you. And you've written something negative and how you try to hide or deny or fix or blame someone else or change that or suppress that. So now I'd like you to consider, what if you stopped doing that? So what if, for the positive thing, what if that's not true about you? What if you were to let that go? What if you're not intelligent or resourceful or compassionate or happy-go-lucky or whatever you wrote down for the positive trait? What if you just let go of that? You don't have to be that. So what if it's not true? What would really be the big deal about that? What would you be losing? And now I want you to consider the same thing for the negative trait that you wrote about. So what if that is true? What if you just stop trying to control it and stop trying to deny or hide, suppress, fix? What if you are irresponsible? What if you are ugly? What if you are late all the time? Well, late all the time isn't a trait. Late all the time is a behavior. I'm talking about a quality. So maybe you are late all the time, but you wouldn't necessarily make that negative about yourself. So suppose you're telling yourself, well, I'm lazy. Right? So what if you are lazy? The thing about it is, since these things are not real, if you were to just let yourself for a few minutes just be completely and totally irresponsible or lazy or worthless or dumb, if you try to experience it, you really can't. And when you can't experience it, then you can see how unreal it is. So what if you just drop the whole game and trying to making it real and then trying to make it not true because you made it true? What if you just drop it? What would you lose? What would happen? What are you afraid of? So as you're doing this, I hope that you can see what a huge amount of effort this requires. This is very labor-intensive process. You have to take situations or people or things and make them mean something about you, and then you have to deem that meaning positive or negative. And then anytime something comes up in the future that aligns with that or doesn't align with that, then you have to go through the process again of reestablishing, yes, that's true about me. No, that's not true about me. It's constant work every single day. So I'm letting you know that you don't have to do this. Now, it can be scary because you're letting go of this illusion of control. And so this is why I've asked you to think about what you might lose if you were to stop trying to control this image you have of yourself and the image that other people have of you. So when people say that they're looking for peace, or they just want to feel okay, really that's where you're starting from. You're starting from a sitting position, like you're sitting in a chair. You are peace. You are open, loving presence. And then you get up from the chair and you go away. You go somewhere else. You go to, no, I'm the false self. I'm this person. I'm smart. I'm pretty. I'm happy-go-lucky. And I have to maintain those things. And I'm not petty. And I'm not selfish. And so I have to keep those things at bay. And I'm constantly watching. What does this mean about me? Well, that might mean that I'm selfish and I don't like selfish. Now I have to, no, I'm not selfish. Oh, I'll help you. Sure. I'll do that. No problem. Yeah, I can fit that somewhere on my schedule of 100,000 other things that I'm doing so that no one will think that I am selfish, especially myself. So it's a lot of work maintaining this concept of the false self and keeping it in line. So if you drop the whole game, if you drop that, look how much energy is freed up. You're just in your sitting position, your open, loving awareness, presence. You are free to be here now. Because the wall of the false self is not in front of your face, obstructing your view of what's here now. Now you're free to be really present. And in fact, you can recognize yourself as the freedom itself. Because open presence is freedom. It is totally free and at peace because nothing defines it, nothing affects it. It's open. So if you don't get up and go away from that, then here you are. So there's no effort required in being yourself. All the effort that you're doing, the work that you're doing is in trying to be the false self and trying to make the false self okay. Or in identifying with the authentic self and then trying to make that okay. So all your energy will be freed up and you can finally be here now. And then you are free to take compassionate action if you want to. So I'll give a quick example of what the difference is between the two things before we close. So and I'm going to use my example of intelligence. So if I get an A on a test and I'm not practicing this practice of making things personal, making it mean something about who I am, then I'm free to just be here with the A I got on the test and enjoy it. So you're free to be here now. You're free to enjoy things as they are. Or if you want to change something, then you can take compassionate action, but it doesn't mean anything about you. So if I got an A on a test and I'm not trying to create and control my false self, my idea of myself, then I can just, I got an A. All right. Great. And be happy about that. Enjoy that. But now I'm not going to take the step of, that means I'm a genius. Because if I have now the step of, that means I'm a genius, now I have to keep recreating. Because what if a year goes by and I don't do anything smart? Then what happened to my genius? Oh no, maybe it went away. I have to hurry up and do something to show myself again that I'm still smart. So that's the positive side, right? Now, if it's a negative, if I got an F on a test, I don't have to make it personal. I don't have to make it mean anything about me. It doesn't mean anything about me since there is no me. I got an F. Okay, I got an F on a test. That's not what I would prefer. I would prefer to get a B or an A or a D or a C, whatever. And if I prefer to get that, fine. Since my energy isn't used up and my vision isn't clouded by trying to be someone, trying to use that circumstance to be someone or to not be someone that I don't want to be, then I can just take steps, compassionate action, because I saw that the self said I would like to get a better grade. And I, as compassionate awareness, say, okay, I want to help you. Let's study for the next test, or let's get a tutor. Or maybe this major isn't for you. Maybe we'll switch to a different major that fits you better. Then you're free to take any of those actions without going through the anguish of, oh, I failed, I'm a failure, I'm this, I'm that. And then putting that in your image of yourself, or putting that in the bank of negative things that you're trying to run away from or hide or deny. You don't have to do any of that. If you prefer to get a different grade, take some action. You're free to do that. So that's the difference. If you're not fighting this war against who you think you are, who you think you might be, who you think other people think you are, etc. It's like that movie from the 80s, War Games, right? The only way to win is not to play. So you're free to drop this whole game and just be yourself, which is compassionate awareness, which is actually freedom itself. Okay, so that concludes our class for today, part 3 of The Path of No Problem. And this Thursday, June 25th at 7 p.m., we'll be having an online meeting on Zoom, 7 p.m. Pacific time, and I hope that you can join us there. So thank you for watching my video, and remember, you are not the self. You are the compassionate awareness that is aware of the self, that acknowledges the self, and takes care of the self.